Captured soldiers of both sides were held at prisons with poor sanitation, poor medical care, and even worse food. But there was mail exchanged under flags of truce, especially at Old Point Comfort, Virginia, shown on this scarce cover, where stamps of both the Confederacy and the Union paid postage in each of their respective territories. Frederick Douglass, freed slave, was the first black to ever become an advisor to any U.S. president, although I must note in passing something that I know many of my black friends here are probably not aware of. The first poet laureate of the United States, named by George Washington, was Phyllis Wheatley, a freed slave woman who'd been educated in England and then returned to New England. And he named her first poet laureate. In any event, Mr. Lincoln recognized the value of Frederick Douglass' advice. One of Douglass' strong suggestions to Lincoln was that he add to the Union Army the strength of able and courageous free black men who were willing to serve as soldiers for the Union. Lincoln took Douglas' advice, and he created regiments of black soldiers with white officers, and they were known as the U.S. Colored Troops. Here on this envelope, which is out there, he approved the appointment of the first colonel of the 54th Massachusetts Regiment. A black soldier dressed in a Zouave uniform, they were inspired by Turkish military uniforms, is the only found on one patriotic, and I'm sorry to say it's the only example known today, but at least it's there for you to see. Their bravery was brought to the attention of most modern Americans in a movie that if you haven't seen it, please do rent it. Denzel Washington in the movie Glory. Many soldiers' families needed help while their men were away at war. This cover carried aid coupons to help a soldier's family pay for food. On September 22, 1862, Lincoln used his commander-in-chief powers to order an end to slavery in all the states which were in open rebellion effective January 1, 1863. Here is the Emancipation Proclamation issued as a general order to all Union troops. The war was fought in open fields, and it was fought in wooded forests and on the seas. The Marines in this hand-tinted Magnus cover were fighting in the woods of North Carolina. John Ericsson's improved propeller and Dahlgren's more powerful cannons enabled the Union Ironclad Monitor, which is right here. It was described, probably accurately, as looking like a cheese box on a raft. In any event, while it only had 2 guns, they were more powerful than the ones in the CSS, or Confederate steamship, Virginia. And it beat the Virginia. Now, you might have known it as the Merrimack. That was its older name. So this is the famous Battle of the Monitor and the Merrimack. And the effect of it was that it secured for the Union the Virginia Capes and Chesapeake Bay, an important gain in the war. Lincoln ran for re-election in 1864. He took a border state Democrat, Andrew Johnson of Tennessee, as his vice presidential running mate on the Union Party ticket. He was looking for help to bring the nation back together and to start its reconstruction after the anticipated end of the war within a year. John Wilkes Booth. John Wilkes Booth was the brother of renowned actor Edwin Booth. He thought that he could stop the South's loss of the war if Lincoln and Secretary of War Stanton were killed. What might have succeeded in 1862 or 3 was a foolish act of desperation after Lee already surrendered the Confederate Army at Appomattox on April 9, 1865. Nevertheless, Booth shot Lincoln on April 14, 1865, while he and his wife were at a performance of My American Cousin at Ford's Theater, not far from here. He died at 7:20 a.m. the next morning. The nation went into a period of deep mourning. This mourning cover, of which there are many, many different examples, has handwritten references on it where the sender wants to remind the receiver about Ford's Theater and the betrayal. At this time, it was customary to observe a one-year period of mourning, and many people wore elaborate ribbons as memorials. And you'll see a number out there, there's a couple out there that are on paper, but this one is hand-painted on silk. Almost at the end of the mourning year, Congress belatedly gave Mrs. Lincoln the right given other widows of presidents to free frank her mail by just signing her name. This mourning cover, dated April 10, 1866, is the first known use of her franking privilege. The National Banknote Company created a portrait of Lincoln from his preferred C.S. German photograph with some elements of one by Matthew Brady. The U.S. Treasury commissioned National to prepare an official mourning portrait, which could then be distributed throughout the country to people who requested it, starting with the anniversary of what would have been Lincoln's 57th birthday, February 12, 1866. The U.S. Post Office Department adapted the same portrait for use as a 15-cent stamp in the mourning cover of black. Actually, they considered blue, but rejected it. And it was to pay the common treaty rates to German states and to France. It was issued in April 1866, marking the end of the official year of mourning. The stamp and its first use on cover is shown.